Hello, people of Earth. This is Tesko with Rip Kenny and Trap Jesus, and you're listening to the Human Music Podcast. Woo!
Human Music Podcast. I like it. Yo, what's up? Welcome to the Human Music Podcast. We're here with Spiderhound, one of the coolest dudes that we all know. Super dope musician, head of A&R at Producer Dojo, and so much more. You're going to learn about this guy today. What's up, Spiderhound?
Hello, Human Music Podcast. How are you all?
Great. Yeah, awesome. It's good to catch up with you, Sean.
Yeah, totally, man.
The simulation is running smoothly today.
Yeah. Yeah, for real.
At least we got that going for us.
New music during quarantine? How's that going?
Oh my God, yeah. So I'm writing a song a day. I've been doing that for 2 years now, like clockwork, like every single day, because I fully bought into the you get to quality through quantity, and it's absolutely true. Like, I mean, I've been producing for like 28 years, and I've tried every method you could imagine, and this I wish I could go back in time like 20 years ago and tell myself, dude, just write a song every single day. And that's the answer, because it's totally the answer. It's yielded results that I've wanted like my entire life, and that's the way to go, I'm convinced. What do you guys think about quantity?
100%. I fully agree. I think because you can improve like exponentially on those concepts, and they're like very fresh in your mind. So as you're like redoing it every day, like I'm fully convinced as a programmer, I've always felt like taking time away from the problem is super vital, because your subconscious sort of figures stuff out. And I feel like the same is very true with producing. And as you're like instilling these workflow habits, because that's all your sound really is. It's like the culmination of habits that you develop over time. It's like as these things are fresh simmering in your mind, and you're off doing whatever until your next session the next day, it's like your mind is coming up with all sorts of variations on how to do something 10% different here and 5% different here and whatever. And it might seem like at the time you're doing everything like formulaically if you're not consciously like giving yourself little challenges or whatever, but I'm convinced you could run the same formula every day and just show up and do the work, write a song, and in 3 months, those little 5-10% differences are going to add up to like a totally, I don't want to say different workflow, but like different sound through that process.
I agree, absolutely, completely. And the thing about the gift of doing it every day is the gift of detachment, because there's just so much content that you can't get attached to any of it, because tomorrow you'll be doing something totally different, right? So detachment is key. When you get too attached to something, you're not as willing to take risks and experiment, and then the longer you invest in the song, like the harder it is to become the editor, because you get too attached to all the elements that you put into it. So it's the gift of detachment, but it's also you develop a keen sense for when something's gonna work and when something's not gonna work. Whereas like years ago when I'd be working on a song, I'd have no idea, is this thing going to work or not? Maybe if I put in more time, it'll be great, right? But what I'm realizing now is like I could sense pretty quickly like whether or not it's going to be release worthy, or whether or not it's just the daily practice and it's going to be mediocre, right? Like I get that sense really quickly these days. I don't know. What about you guys? Like, when you're working on something, at what point do you, like, how long does it take for you to say, like, oh, this is totally going to be, this is release worthy, or, oh no, this is just a mediocre thing I'm working on?
I wish I could take more notes from your process and apply it. Like, we even had a conversation like what was that, like a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, where I was like asking you how you structure your daily practice, because I want to do that more. I just like I get too in the weeds when I sit down to write a piece of music, and like it takes me so long to get to the point where I know if it's good or not. I just need to sit down and like write a chord progression every day, or like write a guitar riff every day or something, because it's always the songs where I like start working on and then land on something like a chord progression that is really special in my eyes, and those are the songs that end up being great. But like my brain always goes like, man, you know how long it takes you to get to that point, like you can't do that in 30 minutes. So I like end up just like doing something else with that time that I could spend, on a daily habit like that. And so you're definitely an inspiration for me, at least, on keeping that quantity of output up to get to those types of ideas, because like you said, quantity through quality is 100% a fact. If I set aside a Saturday to work on music and write a whole song, it doesn't always end up in an amazing song, even if I give myself the whole day, because like that idea that you run with has to be great at the start. Like you said, you kind of know like if this is going to be the one, or if it's just going to be another one. Not another one in the DJ Khaled sense. But,
yeah, more so like the way I look at it is like this is just going to be mediocre. Like 80% of the stuff I work on is mediocre, and 20% is the release worthy stuff. So I could tell like, oh, this is just, it's not going to be. It might be okay, and it could be good, but it's not release worthy, which is fine, because then I kind of like look at it. It's like going to the gym, right? Like it's all right. I'm at the gym. I'm working out.
Right. That's more than half the battle.
Yeah, showing up. So like it's kind of like I was thinking today, like a metaphor. It's kind of like up at bat. Like the more you get up to bat, the more chances are of having a home run. But so say like in the course of a year, you only get up to bat 12 times. I mean, what's the likelihood that you're going to hit a home run in those 12 up at bats, right? So
I love that analogy. That's so accurate.
Right?
So accurate, because even the best ones, even the greatest players of all time, it's like one out of three you just get on base. How often are you going to hit a home run?
Yeah, totally.
You get like 60 home runs in a season with, I don't know baseball that well, but 1,000 at bats. How many at bats do you get? 3 at bats a game? You don't play 300 games.
180, 160 games, something like that. It's a crazy amount of games either way.
This is a music podcast, not a sports podcast. So
yeah, and it's so weird. Yeah, it's so weird. Like I don't even like follow sports, so it's like a weird analogy for me. Like
it makes perfect sense.
So applicable though. We are a podcast of analogies, though. We love.
Yeah, the more metaphors we can stuff into an episode, the better we feel we did. So thank you.
Yeah, it makes sense in some multiverse.
Yeah, there is a definitely hits home more than others. But okay, so we'll call it between 500 and 600 at bats a year, and you hit 60 home runs, you're a fucking legend. So that's 1 in 10 for the best ever.
That even sounds crazy to me.
That sounds crazy, right? Like, and that really puts it in perspective. Like the best are gonna get 1 out of 10. Like, does that apply to music? Full apples to apples, I don't know, but it is a good indication of like the best possible result you can get reasonably could happen 1 out of 10 times if you're doing really well. So write more music.
100%. I think it's hard to tell too which will be the home run for each person too. Yeah. Like Dylan really instilled that idea in the early days of like, you're not writing for yourself. Like you're writing for yourself in terms of like scratching that itch, but as far as like letting other people judge the art for what it is and like let them relate to it based on their experiences and what they like in music, it's like you don't know what that's going to be for whoever. And like there's so many songs that pop off like a year or two later because it just took the right group of people to find it, or like the record label people that slept on the Beatles or whatever. It's like it wasn't a home run for them, but it was a home run for the rest of the world. So
Totally.
who knows?
Yeah. I mean, Sean, you are one of the people that I would say has the most credibility for being able to say quality through quantity, because you've had enough time to realize what works and what doesn't. I'm personally curious. I don't know that I've ever heard your full story of where your musical journey has taken you, what styles you've dived into, why you've landed on electronic music. I would love personally to hear where you've come from and any insights you've gained from all of that experience.
Oh, geez, sure. Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. So I loved music since I was a kid. That was my thing. Right. I would come home from school and just lie on the floor and dating myself. But at the time it was records. Right. So I would just lie on the floor and listen to Led Zeppelin or Jimi Hendrix or Pink Floyd and just look at the album cover and read the lyrics. And I took up guitar when I was 14 years old. And basically then I learned by ear, and my parents, saw that I was figuring it out by myself with no help. And they were like, "Oh, would you like for some lessons?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'd love some lessons." And so they, I went to, there was a guitar store in town, and they were Catalano's it was. And he gave me guitar lessons. So I took lessons. I learned sight reading. I learned theory, the whole thing. And when I started getting really good at guitar, then I started getting into bands. And in the first instance, I was I made no original songs. I was just learning. I would learn off records. I would hit Jimi Hendrix, and I would learn the solo, Eddie Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, you name it, on and on. And I would just learn it by ear. And then I would get into these bands, these cover bands, and would play cover songs. And then when I was in college, when I got to college, it was good money, actually. Well, it was good for many reasons. It was a good way to meet girls, but it was also it was fun as hell. You go to the bar and you're the center of attention. Everybody's there to watch you guys, and the weird thing is fans started to develop for cover bands. It was weird. We weren't playing any original music, and people would come to the bars they'd hear we were playing, and they'd come to the bars and stuff. And so at the time it was in the grunge era. So we were playing Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Red Hot Chili Peppers, to name a 90s band, that was our set. 9 Inch Nails, just name a 90s band. That's what we were playing at the bar. And we made good money. When we packed the bar out, at one point we were bringing so many people to the bar because basically everybody from the college would just come to the bar, and the bar would pack out wall to wall. And we negotiated a split of the bar. So they gave us a percentage of the bar at the end of the night. And, we would walk home with $1,200 each or something like that. What
the fuck?
Yeah.
Those are the days, eh?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
That is so good.
But that was at the peak of the time, right? So things started going downhill because people just started they didn't want to keep doing the same thing. They eventually got bored of it, and less people started coming, and it was so interesting. I remember it was yesterday. When you pack out a bar, the owners love you. Everybody loves you. The people love you. The owners love you. Everybody's making money. Everybody's happy. But then when less and less people start showing up, it's at the end of the night, the owners hate you. They're what do you do? There's nobody come. Nobody's coming. We don't like you anymore. They just say rude stuff to you. Because, like, I mean, they were depending on you for, you know, the income, right? And then if people weren't showing up, then, like, you'd get scolded at the end of the night and stuff like that. And so, yeah, the times were good, but then they got bad. And then we would play, like, house parties and beach parties and stuff like that. But I got sick of that, just playing other people's songs, and I started writing my own original music, and then slipping it into the sets and stuff like that. Like, we'd play a bunch of covers, then I'd slip in like an original song, and people go, "Oh, what is that?" And be like, "Oh, I wrote it." And you know, that was kind of cool because you get like a real opinion of what people think, because they maybe they thought it was a cover that they just hadn't heard before or something like that. So then once I got the taste for that, I didn't want to do any covers anymore. So then I just focused on being in original bands. And there was one band I was in for like 10 years. It was called Yellow Dog, and got together with like a friend from high school and his college buddy, and a couple other guys, and we were just an all original band. Like we would basically go to the one of the guitar player had like a cabin in the woods, and we would go to his house, and the whole weekend we would just workshop stuff. We would sit there with the acoustic guitars and just like, you know, come up with songs and then record them, do like demo tapes. And then, I mean, we wrote hundreds of songs together, and then we would just tour all around and stuff like that. We got a pretty good big following. We started packing out bars with the original band, which was cool. So we had like a residency at this bar in New York City, and we would pack it out every time, and people kept coming, and you know, that was a good situation. And then we would tour like all the clubs in the city. Like we played every club in the city, toured like all around. And one time we opened for Mountain. There's this classic rock band called Mountain. Did you ever hear of Leslie West?
No.
Nope.
Is he from that band? I've heard of the band.
The band, like, so the big hit is like Mississippi Queen.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Mississippi Queen. So yeah, so like we opened for him. That was like our big moment. We opened for him. He was a jerk, by the way. Like total jerk. Like you know, it was disappointing because, like, you know how like when you admire somebody and then you meet them and you're like, oh, I wish I never met them because this guy's a dick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was just like, he was so rude to his guitar tech. Like, if something would go wrong with his guitar pedals, like he would like, get out here, you son of a bitch, and fix this guitar thing. Like in the middle of the show, like everybody notices, like, like, and the poor guy would come out on stage like you know, covering himself because he's probably used to getting like beaten by Leslie West, and he was just like, you son of a bitch, like don't make this happen again. Like he was awful.
I don't understand how people like that can
He was awful. He was terrible.
fucking get to that level, treating people like that, you know?
Yeah, just an aside, for a person that's been yelled at by somebody else on stage for something that wasn't my fault, don't ever do that. If you're like, especially for all our listeners, you'll be out DJing somewhere and some malfunction will happen and you might get angry, you might get scared, you might turn around and want to yell at somebody. Just don't do it. Everybody in the crowd will be like, just like Sean was now, oh, this guy sucks as a person, even though I liked his music. I don't think I'm going to come see him anymore because this was a really awkward moment in the middle of a good night. Just don't do that. Be nice to people. Even if it wasn't their fault. They're working to fix it.
There's a video of Skrillex's like DJ messing up mid-set. I think it was Skrillex. And he's just like, hey! And the whole crowd's like, hey! And then they just had a good time about it. And that's how you do it.
That's so true. Like even like Zed's Dead, like at Shambhala, like completely fucked the pre-drop. Like they were supposed to bring in they brought in the wrong fader and it was silence. When like they were like hyping the crowd up and then it was just silence. And the guy was just like, let's run that one again. And everyone was like, yeah, that no one was mad. Like,
No.
shit
You
happens.
just acknowledge it and move on.
Yeah, the guy that turns around and like fucking throws his hands up like, it wasn't me, what the fuck? You're like, come on, bro, no one cares. Just get on with it,
The coolest thing about live shows is like those moments when mistakes happen, right? Because it's like it's memorable and people enjoy that. It's not like they don't like think less of you because of it. It's just like, it's just entertaining, right? So like, don't take yourself too seriously. Don't be mean to other people. Just like make it like a joke and play it off and keep going.
If anything, it's kind of inspiring. Like, I know growing up watching guitar players play, like when they just horrendously mess it up, you're like, oh, thank God, he's human too. Like, I have a chance here.
Yeah, maybe he's just a guitar demigod, not a full-on guitar.
Right.
I have a chance.
Right.
But
so back to your story, Sean, about how so you came up, you got that to that kind of high water mark with that band of opening for Angry Dude.
Yeah, so basically what we were in that band all the way up until I had so me and the other guitar player had our first kids at the same time. Like mine, Emma was born in August and his firstborn was born in like October, right? So basically the band just ended, right? It was the logical time for the band to end because we were new dads and that was our complete focus and there was no time for rehearsals or playing out or anything like that. So so the band came to end. It was a logical end to the band. There was no hard feelings or anything. Everybody just kind of like went on with their lives. And so for a couple of years there, I just focused on being a new dad. And I didn't go into the DAW once in those 2 years. And it was pretty painful. Like I just felt like a little empty because I always had that outlet like my whole life, whether it was playing guitar or writing original songs or, there's always music, creativity in my life. And then
sorry, not to cut you off, but so you were already producing at this time? You got into producing before your daughter was born?
Oh yeah. So the first time I got into producing was when I was 18 years old. Like I produced my first original song like on a 4-track recorder. It was like a 4-track Tascam, and I got into the 4-track and learning that. And then I recorded tons of crappy tunes on that thing.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, totally. Like if I wouldn't even want you to hear them. It's so embarrassing. Like I wouldn't want you to hear them.
We all got those.
We all got those, brother.
It's so bad. But yeah, so like I was into analog, so recording on analog 4-track until this opportunity came up to work in a post-production studio, and they were on Pro Tools. And I was like, what's this magic? This is amazing. And the first time I saw Pro Tools, I was like, my whole, like, my brain just exploded. I was like, what? Like, there's like, unlimited undos, and like, this is insane. Like everything you could do with it. Cause like I was used to like wrestling. I don't know if you've ever used a 4-track tape recorder, but it's completely unforgiving. Like you're basically like tattooing the sound into the tape, and there's no undo. So so if you're doing a take, like it's burnt into the thing, and you can't, like, the only way to redo the take is just to tape over it, right? And then the most anxious part is like when you could turn 4 tracks into 6 tracks or 8 tracks if you bounce it. So what bouncing is you collapse the tracks onto 2. So basically the 4 that you've recorded basically get collapsed onto 2, and then you have 2 extra tracks to use. But the thing is, there's no undo. So like when you collapse the tracks and do a recording over it, it's etched in there forever. So talk about nerve-wracking. Like, okay, I want to do a guitar solo, and it's like if you hit a bad note, it's like you can't, it's in there. So it's either do the whole damn song over or just go with it, or try to cover it up or something.
Wow, we are blessed to live in these times.
For real.
Unlimited tracks, unlimited undos, unlimited instances of serum. Everybody out there, stop complaining about whatever you were complaining about and just like tip your hat to whoever made your DAW and keep making music.
Seriously, like I was like a kid in the candy store because like I was used to wrestling with this damn 4-track recorder where like, you know, it's like walking on a tightrope. Like you're doing a guitar take and it's like you're sweating, but like, you know how like on the spot you feel like when you're doing a take? Even in Ableton, like you have unlimited undo, it doesn't matter, but you still have that like anxiety, like, oh, I got to nail this, right?
Yeah.
It's
when you
times that
practice it 20 times, it's fine. And then
times that by 100, it's like, okay, I'm gonna hit record, and this is gonna get etched into the tape, and there's no undo. So it's like, it's like
miss the first note.
Totally.
it's like, son of a bitch.
It's funny now how producers sort of have the opposite problem where it's these like commitment issues, and it's finding that sweet balance between the two where it's like it'll never be 100% good. It's got to be like 95%, and you got to like tell yourself like, all right, there's the whole rest of the song to be written. Like, do you feel like that helped you through that phase, or do you feel like you still had those like I don't want to say commitment issues, but like, do you feel like that hindered your workflow when you started having unlimited takes, or do you feel like that tape recording process like gave you a good perspective into like being able to move past that?
Oh, great question. So having the unlimited, no, I totally bought into the unlimited tracks, and that is like, that became my number one problem. Is like I just put too much shit. I layered because I had the power now. I was like, power, like unlimited tracks, like this. Let me do 10 guitar, like because like, oh, you know, 2 guitar tracks sounds good, but 10 guitar tracks, that's gonna be like the best guitar ever. Like so I'd layer like 10, 12 guitar tracks, and it sounded like shit. And I'm like, how come 12 guitar tracks isn't better than 2 guitar tracks? Like, what's going on?
This is a lot
of diminishing returns, huh?
I have definitely found myself there in my early years where I was like, wait, 2 lead sounds stacked on top of each other sounds good? Let me get 8 lead sounds. They're all presets. None of them work together. They're all sawtooth waves, and let's just stack that shit up. It's huge. It sounds great.
Where'd my drums go?
Yeah, what?
Right.
It sounded terrible. So yeah, so like it created new problems for me because like I just threw too much shit in there, and then like I became unable to take anything out because like everything I threw in there I was too attached to. Mm-hmm. So like I just made these like messy
layer cakes,
messy, terrible layer cakes. They're goddamn awful. But fast forward to to when. So after the 2 years after Emma was born, I wanted to get back into production, and I always wanted to produce electronic music. Basically, so in 1993, I lived in England for a year. And like I did the year abroad as part of my college, and I got introduced to the rave scene while I was over there, and like it was just like the best year of my life. It was amazing. Like I would go to all these raves in England in the countryside, like 3-day raves, and it was just life changing, right?
Please tell me that these raves were the type where like you got a map point. And like you had to show up to the convenience store, and then that guy would give you the real location of where you were going. Is that what was going down, or is that just like glorified?
So that sounds American. So in England, it was just like people just went to raves all the time. So like it was not a secret. There was just raves happening all the time. And the first rave I went to was at a friend's house in the countryside. So it was like in the middle of nowhere in England in the countryside, and it was their. So imagine it was like a bunch of students living in this house in the countryside, right? And they just had a 3-day rave. Like it started on like a Friday night, and I think it ended on like Tuesday or something. Like it was
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was, but the weird thing is like it felt like one evening, because like they had all the windows like blacked out and stuff like that, so you could kind of like lose track of time. And I remember leaving, and I was thinking it was like Sunday or something, and they were like, "Dude, it's Tuesday." Like, well, they don't say "dude," but hey, yo, mate,
Right.
mate, it's Tuesday. And I'm like, what? Like, that's impossible. What are you talking about? That's crazy. Yeah. But they went for it. Like, everybody just went for it. It was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. All vinyl. All vinyl DJs, nonstop music. Like, the music didn't stop for a second. It was like seamless transitions, nonstop music the whole time. Insanity. It was incredible. And then, so there was other raves there, like, like festivals. Like, you'd go to like these festivals in these big fields, and they'd have tents set up and stuff like that. Each tent would have different music in it and stuff like that. But it was the music was different back then. It was like it was longer. Like, so the songs were longer. Like, they 10-minute songs, and they were very drawn out and really long build-ups and really long drops that would last forever. And like, I think people had more patience back then. It was more hypnotic. So it was more hypnotic, and people would just be going for it. And
plus it's way harder to quick mix on vinyl.
Yeah.
Once you get that song queued and those two decks working simultaneously, it's like, okay, let me take a deep breath and let this happen for a while.
It was very, very hypnotic and 4 on the floor type stuff. It was like the constant 4 on the floor hypnotic stuff. But it was awesome. So ever since then, like, I had loved electronic music, and then when Radiohead came out with Kid A, I was like, God damn, like, that's it, like, that's what I want to do, because like, it was like the perfect hybrid between like rock and roll and electronic music, and I was like, God, that's the future. That's what I want to learn. And then when I had the opportunity to, be by myself, because I was with the band for so long, it was a commitment between other people. So, there wasn't time to have like an electronic music side project, right? Like, I was completely focused on like making and producing and stuff like that.
Were you mixing all those records?
Yeah.
In those days too?
Yeah. So I produced all our albums. And mix them, and I think we got one of the albums professionally mastered, but yeah, I did all that stuff. So I cut my teeth on that, like in rock and roll, but producing rock and roll is very different than producing electronic music. I learned pretty quickly, because now here I wanted to start learning electronic music, and I'm like, all right. I was on Pro Tools. I was on Pro Tools for like 16 years, and I hated it because it wasn't very conducive to getting an idea from your head immediately into the DAW. Like, it was great for tracking bands and mixing and mastering, but like, to go from idea to execution, it was very clunky, and so I was looking on YouTube. At the time, like, I was in love with like Fortet. I really loved his music, so I would like I saw this Against the Clock, but with Fortet, where he made this song in 10 minutes, and I was watching it, and he had this funky DAW, and I was like, what the hell is that thing? He didn't say what it was. There was no notes. Like, I'm like, well, what the hell DAW is he using? It was magical. Like, he in 10 minutes he had a complete song, and it was amazing. And he's like, oh, I think I'll play this at the club tonight. And I'm like, what is this thing? I gotta get it. And I took a screenshot of it. And then like, I was looking for the image through Google to find out what the hell is this thing, and I found out it was Ableton. Immediately bought it, and then found out I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Like, I was completely lost. I was
very different 10 minutes for you.
Oh God! Like, I was like, what the hell is session view? Like, I get arrangement view. Like, what the hell is this session view? And I I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So then I started scouring YouTube for tutorials, and everywhere, Ill Gates popped up. Ill Gates, Ableton, Ill Gates. And I watched them all, and I got the Ill methodology, and it blew my mind. Like, he just explained these incredibly complex topics in a way that connected psychology and sociology, and it just made so much sense. Like, everything he said, like, I completely connected with, and he resonated with me. And then I found his website, and I bought all this stuff off his website, like all templates and sound packs and everything. And then there was a contact thing on his website, and I emailed him, and I'm like, oh, I made a song. What do you think? It's like, and like 2 weeks later, he answered me. Like, I didn't think he was going to answer me. He answered me, and he's like, oh, sorry, I've been touring or something. And he gave me feedback on my song, and that was incredible. It was like the first time in my life, like, an artist connected with me. Like, like, up until that point, it was like, think about when I was growing up, like, the artists were like the musicians that you look up to, like Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones, and like these are all like people that you admire, but you're never going to meet them ever, right?
And if you do, they're like the dude from Mountain.
Yeah, and if you do, it's probably a situation where, like, you're backstage and it's like, hi, I love you, like, this is, I love, like, it's nice to, and that's it, right? But actually, like, the new kind of the new industry kind of started happening around that time, where, like, artists were like directly connecting with their fans, and like having, like, more impactful relationships with their fans and stuff like that. Whereas, like, back in the day, there was a wall between the fan and the artist. It was like the artist was on stage and they're on a pedestal. You can't touch them, you can't interact with them, you just admire them. It's like, look, no touch, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
There's a separation between artist and fan, whereas now it's kind of like there's a connection. There's like a direct connection between artists and fans, due to social media and the immediate access you have to them and stuff like that. So, so I connected with him, and we would talk back and forth via email, and then he set up a Patreon site, and I remember seeing the video. He launched a video on YouTube saying, like, oh, I have a Patreon, and he explained what Patreon is, and then said, like, oh, I have a top tier, and if you join the top tier, you get one-on-one lessons. And I was like, that moment, like, the light bulb, like, it was, when you have that moment and it's just like, oh, this is it, like, this is that chance, right? I was on a train coming from work, and so I tried to, like, order the thing on my phone, and it wasn't working, and I was freaking out. I was like, I'm gonna miss out. I'm not gonna be like, I get home, I run into the computer, like, I nab it, and I'm like, oh, I got it. Yeah, I get one-on-ones with Ill Gates, and so at that time it was like me, Matter, Timmy from Mindset, Tesko. You were in there at that time, right?
Shortly after.
I
think it filled up once, and then one person left, and then I hopped in.
Yeah, I think Moonsplatter was in there. It's basically like the most of the senseis were like the first 12, and then I had one-on-ones with him for 2 years, which were mind-blowing. I just had incredible growth during those 2 years, because I had plateaued. Because I was surrounded by people that just, like, when I asked for feedback, they'd be like, it's great, right? And that wasn't very helpful, because I wasn't growing. I was just plateauing. Like, I was just believing, like, I was great. And nobody was actually giving me critical feedback that I needed to hear. And Dylan, He'd rip me every time we would meet. He'd like rip me a new, not rip me, like he would tear my shit apart, right? Like, oh, you got to work on this, dude. You gotta work on this, and that's what I need. That's what I needed to hear. I like hearing like, oh, it's great, I love it, good job. Like you're not going to grow, right?
Totally.
But I don't know about you guys, but like, so the big problem with that I was having many problems, but one of the big problems I had was because I was a rock and roll producer, like all the songs I was creating didn't have any sub in them. Mm-hmm. There was no sub bass because like what the hell was sub bass? I knew bass guitar. I didn't know what the fuck is sub bass. So like all the songs I produced basically were void of sub bass, and Dylan kept saying like, yeah, it's good, but like where's the bass? I'm like, well, there's a bass in there, but it was like one of those like
higher mid basses.
Yeah, like mid bass, like like analog bass kind of things. He's like, yeah, no, like where's the sub bass? And I'm like, what the hell's sub bass?
Yeah, man, it's perspective on it is so different. Like the assumptions we go into coming from where we came from, like what does a song need? You start into a new genre unless you've got somebody there who understands where you're trying to move and understands that zone. It's so hard to get like real critical feedback from somebody. And that's why Il Gates is the man for opening that up and then expanding that and having, all of us teach for him now.
Yeah.
100%.
And I don't know about you guys, but like, it was a real growth moment for me because to be honest, like the first time he gave me feedback, like it hurt my feelings. Like I was really hurt. I licked my wounds. I like went away and I was like, licked my wounds. I'm like, oh, like my shit sucks. Like that's okay. But then like I needed that. Like it took, a couple months of one-on-ones with him until I started getting like a stronger resilience to feedback. And then I developed, then I became better at receiving feedback. When I realized it wasn't personal, it's not personal. It's there to help you grow, right? But I remember that the first feeling of that, because like I was for years like I'd write a song, I'd give it to a friend, and they'd be like, "It's awesome, dude. This is great." Like so, I was not used to hearing somebody like, "Dude, like this sucks." Like what?
What do you think? What do you think it was for you that made you want to keep going through that? Because I think sometimes starting producers don't know how to like properly take that feedback, and they do take it personally and like get hurt. What do you think it was about you that made you so coachable that you wanted to like keep going through that, let's call it painful process?
Yeah, well, because I mean, it wasn't a fluke, right? Like, so I was in the game since I was 14, right? And it wasn't like I picked up the hobby 6 months ago, right? Like my whole life, it's been with me my entire life. And my entire life, I've been striving to get better and better and better and better, one step at a time. And just so that just has become like innate in me. Like I'm always trying to accomplish more to get to the next goal. Like I would always set these little goals. Like I remember the first time I picked up the guitar, my first goal was like, I can't wait until the day that I'm able to play all the open chords with my eyes closed. That was my first goal. And then I hit that goal. I'm like, oh, cool. Like I was like, okay, I can't wait till I could play the pentatonic scale in like every position on the guitar with my eyes closed. And then so I would keep setting these goals and be like, oh, I can't wait until I can play guitar and sing at the same time. And be like, oh, hit that goal. All right, so next goal. I can't wait until, I would keep setting goals. Like now I want to achieve this. And then I would work my butt off until that became a reality. And then I would just keep going and keep going. Did that answer the question, or did I go off course?
Yeah. What do you think someone can do to be more coachable if they're in that stage?
It's easier said than done, but just truly, when you hear me say, it's not personal. It really is not. It's not personal, and I know it's easier said than done because it feels personal to an artist. Like an artist, that's their life. Like that's their passion, So like and they feel good about their passion, right? Like they feel it means something to them, right? And when somebody criticizes that, it kind of stings. It stings a little.
Yeah.
But I think it's a necessary part of growth. Like you have to get over the sting, because now like I get it's not attached to my emotions whatsoever, and because I grew, I went head into the experience and got to the point where I was able to detach my emotions from feedback, right? It was something I had to learn. And it was painful, like, because I had so equated, what other people thought of my music to satisfaction, that like when I was getting critical feedback, it was like physically painful.
Yeah,
Totally.
I think that's one thing that is really tough for producers just starting out, because when you're just starting out, you need a certain amount of ego to propel you through those early years where you do kind of suck, like to believe that you're good enough to get through the amount of work that it's going to take to really get good. You have to believe that you have an innate talent to make it worth your time. And when someone's critical of your work early on, even though you know in the back of your mind that what they're saying is true, it's really hard to have that moment of equalization of, your music. You're not Skrillex right now. I know that you want to be Skrillex right now, and that in some respects you think that you might be an earlier version of Skrillex because that's where your ego is telling you to propel you through these awkward beginner stages. But the coming to terms with the fact that you're not Skrillex right now, but you're working towards being that good, and it's okay that what you're making right now isn't perfect, and realizing and having someone point out where your stuff isn't perfect is actually really beneficial right now, because it helps kind of direct where you might need to put in some extra effort. It's just kind of tough because without having the ego to have to burn down, it's just really hard to put in all of the extraordinary amount of work that it takes to get good at producing. So I think that's probably the biggest reason that I see that people would have a tough time with that.
Yeah, I see this coming back around to where we started, in that quality through quantity. Like you said, at first, when you first started getting feedback, each bit of feedback stung on a personal level. And the more you did it, you realize like, oh, that's just my ego taking a bruise. And it actually doesn't really have anything to do with me. This is me showing a work in progress to somebody who's dedicated to helping me. And I can just not take it personally and apply the feedback and move forward faster. And so like coming at it with this, I'm going to get as much feedback as possible to burn away that sting right now, so that I can get to the part where I can just get more and more feedback. I think that's a really important lesson there.
Yeah, absolutely.
On that. Oh, sorry. Go for it, Evan.
You go for it.
All right. I was going to ask, Sean, because I'm sure you have like some serious gems for the listeners as far as like building yourself up to being able to write a song a day. What kind of advice do you have for people, whether it's like knowing what steps you're going to do, or like preparing your library, or anything along those lines that'll help people stay organized with their favorite sounds and like refine that workflow and get it down to where they can get to a point like you where they can sit down each day and know that they can write a song a session?
Yeah. So a lot of people, when I tell them my process, they kind of, they go like, I could see the anxiety in their face. So it's not for everybody, because like I thrive in chaos. So like I have like no organization whatsoever. Like I just have like hard drives filled with sounds, and I love randomly stumbling upon sounds and then just going with it. That works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. Some people need that organization where like they can pull from their top 10 kicks and their top 10 snares and their sparks and their purple cows and stuff like that. But like I thrive in the chaos. And I learned that from, so I worked with Mr. Bill for a year. Like I did one-on-ones with him for a year. And the striking thing, working with him is, his ability to just grab a sound. Like he doesn't even care. Like he'll just go into his library, just grab it. He didn't even listen to the damn thing. Like how did you know? Like that thing that you just picked. Like he's like, it doesn't matter. Like I can make it what I want it to be, right? So I kind of, that's what I do. Like I make the best of what I grab. Like it's not, because I can tell you I did the opposite, where like I would lose a whole afternoon looking for that perfect kick, and that's time I'm never going to see back. Right now I'm just grabbing something and just going with it. Like if it doesn't sound great, okay, how can I make it sound great? And then I'll manipulate it until it sounds cool, and then I'll just go with it. So that's one thing. Another thing is managing expectations. So just a lot of the people, when they start the quantity leads to quality crusade, if their expectations are too high, it can lead to depression and anxiety, because what happens is, 12 days could go by and they could have 12 songs, and then it's 12 crappy songs. And then they get all like depressed and anxious, and they start beating themselves up, and they're like, oh, I suck at producing. Maybe I shouldn't even be doing this shit. Like, what am I doing? And that's just part of the process. So like, don't let that get you down. Like just realize that, like, I don't know if you've ever seen that image of like the guy, he's like digging through a mine, and you could see like he's digging through this mine, and he's basically dug through tons and tons of dirt, and there's a thin, like, he's got on the other side of the wall is this huge like diamond, but he's so exhausted from having like, cut away like all this dirt. And all he had to do was just swing the axe one more time, the pickaxe one more time, and he would have been the biggest diamond you ever saw in your life, right? But he just he gave up like before that last swing. So that's really the process is like realizing that you're gonna have 22-day streaks, 30-day streaks sometimes, where it's just nothing but shit and mediocre stuff. But on the 23rd day, you're going to have this magic moment. And I'm a firm believer that you have to go through those shitty steps to get to the good stuff. Like, you can't just fast forward to the good stuff. You have to go through those steps. The thing is, like, you don't know what the steps are going to be. Maybe it's 3 days of mediocre crap, and then you'll do a great song, or it could be 22 days of mediocre crap, and then you get to a good song. But it ebbs and flows. Like, and you could have good streaks and bad streaks. Like this weekend, I had a really good streak. I did 3 songs that are like all release worthy. It was like it was a magical weekend. It was just like bang, bang, bang. I knocked them out like really quickly. But then the weekend prior to that, like everything I worked on was crap. It was total crap. But not letting that psychologically get you down in any way, shape, or form. Look at it as like every minute spent in the DAW is positive. There's nothing negative about it. So whether it yields a release is irrelevant. It's all leading up to that and contributing to it.
One more pickaxe swing.
One more pickaxe swing. I swear to God. Like, it's like, I think when people realize how much work it takes, they give up, because it wasn't for them. And if it's not for you, that's great. Congratulations for discovering that, and then now you can move on with your life and find the thing that is for you. But for me, like, I know it's this isn't a hobby. Like, I've been doing this my whole life. Like,
yeah. It's more like a drug addiction, if anything, to be honest, or like an itch you just can't reach. Like,
And every time I sit down to write a piece of music, I'm like, woo, baby, we're gonna win big today. What are we gonna get?
yeah, it's like
money,
gambling. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yo,
that
man.
flow. There's nothing better than flow, man. Like the best feeling is being in flow. It's the best.
Totally.
Yo, I wanna ask you to touch on something that you taught me. So like, you've built up to this process where you have your production process down to a level where you can sit down on a timer and make the whole first draft of a piece of music inside of a part of a day. And that is a place you work to get to. But you taught me something that a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people look at that and be like, oh my God, that is too big to deal with even. Like, how do I even make a piece of music inside of one day? And you taught me about a concept that I've passed on to so many students that's helped them, the 10 minutes a day challenge. I would love you to touch on like how that came about and how that's helping your students.
Yeah. So that came about when from one of my failures. So one of my failures was the year that I decided that my goal was that I was going to produce 5 hours a day. That was a ridiculous goal because it's just, you can't, I have 2 kids, I have a family, I have to make money, I have to pay bills. I got life, like not every day you can dedicate 5 hours to music. So by having that goal, I was setting myself up for failure, and it was a slippery slope. So like the first 3 days was great because I actually managed to do it. But then on the 4th day I failed. But here's the thing, like on the 4th day I put in 3 hours, but felt like a failure because I didn't hit the 5, right? So then I just fell down a slippery slope, and then ended up like weeks went by and I didn't produce anything because it was too daunting of a goal. It was like, well, if I can't do 5 hours, I might as well do nothing. And that's what it became. It was terrible. So I flipped the script and I was like, okay, a minimum viable session, 10 minutes. So it's kind of like tricking your brain into flow, because the hardest part of production is getting started. So when the minimum goal is 10 minutes, you just set the timer out. You hit the timer and you just go. You just get in the door, just start working on something. And then when the alarm goes off, you give yourself permission to stop. So whatever you did, you have permission to stop, right? So if it's a bad day, like maybe psychologically you're not there, you're not feeling it, and it's time to shut down. So you shut down and you achieved your goal. So you can tick off, I achieved my goal for the day. It feels good. Tomorrow I'll try again. What I found out is that like 90% of the time, that 10 minutes turned into like an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, because by the 10-minute mark, you're like in flow, and it feels good to be in flow, and you don't want to stop when you're in flow. So it's kind of like a kickstart to flow, because it's not this daunting thing of like, oh, I'm going to produce 5 hours today. It's like, no, I'm going to produce 10 minutes. Like, I brush my teeth in 10 minutes. I can produce for 10 minutes, right? So you jump in, you get going, and before you know it, you're in flow, and that's where you want to be. Like the fire has already started, so you could keep going.
Amen, man. Yeah, so powerful. Like it's a mind hack. It's a time hack, and it reminds me of Jerry Seinfeld's story about how he got good at comedy writing. He decided, I'm going to write every day, and I'm going to have a calendar that I write a big red X on every day that I wrote, and then you start a chain, and then you just don't want to break the chain.
Yep. It feels good. It feels good to tick off that day. It feels really good. And it's just like it becomes like a virtuous cycle. It like propels you forward to do the next day. And then once you're deep in it, like, so now, like I'm so deep in it, like I can't miss a day. Like it'd be a disaster. Like I can't miss a freaking day. So like you have to, like, you're just like intrinsically motivated based on, your past history you have to do it. Like it's like it's not an option, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it really instills professionalism in the way that like an amateur does it for the love. They show up when it feels good, and a professional shows up because this is what they do every day.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the interesting thing that you develop is the ability to produce in any state of mind, which is helpful because when I was 18 years old, I had to be inspired to create music, right?
Or so you thought.
or so I thought. I convinced myself that I needed to feel inspired, but the thing is, like, true inspiration doesn't come around that often, right? So then if that's what you're relying on, then good luck. Like, you're on the 50-year plan because you're not going to level up quickly. Basically, inspiration comes through momentum. So like just get started and show up, and then you'll be inspired through momentum.
I was curious, Sean. So when you're finalizing projects and you're mixing and mastering the song you're going to release, and you've been going pretty steady with like a track a month about-ish.
Yeah.
Do you still write a song that day and you do your mix master after, or do you consider your mix master session as that day's session? How do you go about that?
Good question. So my day's compartmentalized. So the minimum viable session is the thing that has to get done, right? So no matter what, if it's a challenging day, the only thing that gets done is the minimum viable session. So like that 10 minutes or whatever, the 10 minutes that turns into an hour or whatever, that's the thing that gets done. But on your average day, it's like that's just the first component of the day. And when I finish it, then I can move on to other things like mixing and mastering and working on other projects, like finishing other projects and stuff like that. But it's a component of the day. And it's the first component that I'll hit. So when it comes to creative work, it's the first thing that I'll do before anything else.
I see. Yeah, that's very interesting. Makes perfect sense, though.
Making it the priority, meaning like the first thing you do.
First creative thing I do is that I'll knock that out. And
so, do you have tracks in the backlog already that kind of like keep the pressure off? Like you already know what you're going to release in advance, or are you doing that on a monthly basis?
So I have a stack. I have a focus list stack that's all release worthy stuff. But here's the crazy thing, what I thought was release worthy 3 months ago gets trumped by the thing that I just created this weekend, right? So like, so the 3 songs that I created this weekend, like I'm over the moon about, right? I'm like in love with, and before that weekend, I was sweating some other song. I'm like, oh, this is the thing. But when you get in there every day and you're knocking stuff out and you hit a diamond, it's like, it's a diamond right now, but 3 days from now, I might create a better diamond. so I just stack the diamonds, right? And then I grade them from like best diamond to worst diamond. In reality, they're all pretty damn good, and I'd be happy releasing any of them. But I continue to make something that I'm more proud of, and then it goes to the top of the pot. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing I would like to make sure that we talk about before we're out of time is your role as the head of A&R at Producer Dojo, because that's such an important role. You make so many of the wheels turn, both for the school and for the label. I'd love to hear a little about quickly how you got into that role, and then what it's actually like being an A&R for a label.
Yeah. So when I was in my last job, so I worked for this corporation for like 18 years, and they basically let me go. And when they let me go, they gave me like an 18-month runway, which was insane. So like basically saying like, oh, you know, we're going to let you go like 18 months from now. Right. So I had time. And I remember like when that happened, I was at Dylan's place and I let him know. I was just like, hey, Dylan, you know, heads up, I'm going to be losing my job 18 months from now. And he's like, oh, you know, so I planted the seed. I just planted the seed with him. And, you know, I said, you know, I'm in, you know, I love the dojo, you know, I mean, back then it was different. Like there wasn't like now there's so many different job opportunities within the dojo. But back then it was like a dream of his to employ people at the dojo. Right. But like he wasn't there yet. Does that make sense? Like he had all these ideas and he achieved all those ideas. Like he made those ideas reality. But he would speak in those ideas. And that's when I planted the seed. And I said, you know, I love the dojo. If there was ever a job opportunity at the dojo, I'd love to get involved, you know? So that seed got planted and it was always there in his head. And, fast forward to when I lost my job 18 months later. And during that whole time, you know, I've made my EP, the Dopamine EP. I started teaching at the dojo. And it was around the time where, Dylan and KJ were playing Lost Lands and I was hanging out at Lost Lands with them. And, it was around that time where he's like, oh yeah, you know, would you be interested in like heading up A&R and all that stuff? And I was like, hell yeah, I'd be happy to. And just kind of, he's like, yeah, I just need somebody he's like, I don't have time to focus on that stuff. I just need someone to just run with it and, you know, just take the ball and run with it and get it done. And cause like, you know, he's at least back then, he was on a plane like several times a week, going back and forth all over the place, and you know didn't have the time to focus on all that stuff. So I was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. So I just dove in and started doing it, and have been doing it for a couple years now. And it's changed over time. I mean, now we've ramped it up. Like when I first started, it was like, you know, we would have like one release a month, and now it's like we're shooting for like a cypher and an artist EP every single month. So you know the workload is the ciphers. I mean, you all know, like working on the ciphers, like how much work goes into that. It's like it's a ton of coordination and work and back and forth and stuff. So it's challenging because like I can't like throw too much at Dylan at once. Like I kind of have to like just be like, okay, now focus on this and tell me what you think, instead of I mean, because I could theoretically throw like 100 songs at him. I feel like, what do you think of these songs? Like, but
then again, that reality is why you actually have this job, because he trusts your ear to get them to the place and in an organized manner to where you've broken it down into, these are so close to being ready, they need your final details and then your final approval.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think I'm getting better at it. But, I mean, his perspective keeps changing. So, like, so many times I'd be like, oh, Dylan's going to love this. And then I'm totally wrong. Like, he's just like, he's like, no, like, it's like, it needs to.
I've thought that about my songs too.
Process of getting an EP out on the label, you're gonna have some songs that you think are the one. They're not the one. Oh. You really want them to be, but they're not.
Yeah, totally.
Prepare killing your ego on the way up that ladder, so that by the time you're really getting the nitty gritty feedback on your EP, you're where Sean is, where the feedback rolls right off your back, and you're like, cool, another draft coming up, sir.
Yep.
And the funny part is you will be more happy with the final product. it is a painful journey, but you will be more happy with the final product.
1,000%.
No doubt.
So being the A&R, who have you seen come across your desk that has really blown you away? Besides Luke Rain and Tesko, obviously.
Yeah.
You're
well,
too
I mean,
modest.
no. So I mean, it was impressive. So Sixth Street was incredibly impressive. Like, I mean, he like
Shout
like,
out 6th Street.
yeah, like within 1 year, like he got to black belt, which was like lightning fast. You know, I mean, it normally takes people, you know, a couple years to get to black belt, but like he did, that was impressive. Like the EP that he sent in, his EP, it was just like it was good to go. Same with like Alexandra, like she submitted her EP and it was like there was like no feedback. Like it was like, this is fucking great. Like I sent it to Dylan. He's like, this is fucking great. Let's get to it's like, let's get this out like tomorrow. Like let's get this out like right away. Like,
how did she get to shortcut the terrible, arduous process of getting all your favorite tracks tonight?
She is awesome. Like she has an incredible ear. She's really hard on herself. So I mean, you can imagine when she submits something to you, it's like she's already beat herself up like a bajillion times and gotten it to the point where, you know, she's sharing it with you. So it makes sense. Like she did it to herself. Like she didn't need Dylan to do it. Like she's really tough on herself.
I did it to myself and Dylan did it to me.
Me too. Dude, like I rebuilt my EP 3 times. Like I took it down to the studs 3 times. Like it was by the end, I was ready to jump out a window.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, speaking of Alexandra, big shouts to her for putting that dope EP out, and also like big shouts for becoming a sensei as well. I've been getting some feedback on some of my recent tracks from her, and incredibly great feedback. Anybody who's lucky enough to have that feedback section, make sure you start dropping some tracks in Alexandra's thread, because great feedback.
Oh, she's phenomenal. She's phenomenal.
So, yeah, super talented.
Also, I mean, like came out of nowhere. Like he was like hiding in the wings for like years, for a long time. Like never made himself known. He was kind of like he was stalking. Like he was in the class of 808, but he was just like laying low. And then all of a sudden he started dropping shit. It was just like, what the fuck? This is crazy. Like, what's going on here? And his EP, when he dropped,
So good.
oh, geez, yeah,
So good.
I was like, what feedback? I was like, I got no feedback for this. This thing's fucking awesome. I gave it to Dylan. Dylan had feedback. Like, so Dylan, like, I don't know what the hell it was, but like, you know, he just took it offline. Like, he was like one-on-one with Unk, and he had extensive feedback. God knows what the hell he told him to do, but whatever he said to him, like, the final was amazing.
It's like, tone it down. This is too good.
Hey, you're making us look bad, Unk.
Yeah, shout out to Unk, man.
Yeah, Unk, recent guest of the podcast as well.
Yeah, same with 6th Street.
Yeah.
You got to get Alexandra on here, man.
Oh, man, soon.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit her up.
She's
Yeah,
dope.
do it.
But yeah, I mean, those definitely were standouts over the years. I mean, there's so much good music out there. There's so many talented people in the dojo.
Yeah, the community's really grown since the Patreon days, for sure. It's super awesome to see.
Totally, and it's so great to see people level up, and then when you see light bulbs go off, like that's my favorite thing about teaching. Like when I'm telling them a concept and see the light bulb go up, like you see their eyes wide, and they're just like, oh, like that's like the best feeling.
100%.
Amen. So before we get out of here, any like final parting words of wisdom you want to sprinkle on the humans listening?
Yeah, let them know what's coming up too.
Yeah, plug yourself. This will probably drop within the next couple of weeks, so some timely shameless plugs.
But yeah, so I have a song coming up on the cipher, the Urban Tea House cipher. So that's coming up at the end of June. Yeah, I'm still working on my next release. which I guess will be in July. I just did a song for a friend. He's going to put on his label. He's trying to start up a label. I knocked that out really quick and gave it to him. It's like a really heavy kind of tune. But yeah, haven't decided what the next single release is going to be, because like it's just like each time I get in there, like I keep topping myself. So it's like I think it's going to be this. I'm like, yeah, this is the next release. and then I'll do the daily work. They're like, no, what was I thinking? That was crap. Like, this is going to be the one. So, but I'm committed to, like, no matter what, like bare minimum, it's going to be a track a month. Like there's a month's not going to go by. I'm going to have a release every month, no matter what. And that's a great motivator. So if wisdom to share, like if you want to put yourself in a virtuous cycle where you're actually going to get shit done, put the pressure of forcing yourself to have at least one release a month, because you're going to want that release to be high quality because it's representing your brand, which is going to drive you to work, and it's going to drive you to do your best work, because you don't want to release something and then it be garbage, right? So I find that having that goal really keeps me lit and on fire and motivated through the tough days. So like the days where I might not be feeling it, like I have that backup burn that's saying like, dude, you got your next release, you gotta get in there, it's gotta be fire, it's gotta be good. So set yourself a goal of releasing one a month, but don't start releasing until you have 6. So 6 that you're completely proud of, because then that buys you time. So you basically have a 6-month runway. So then you do release one, and now you have like 5 months to get the next one, ready to go. So you're not working on the one that's going to be the next month. You're working on the one that's going to be like 6 months from now, right?
I could really take some lessons from you on that, dude. Holy shit.
Yeah. It takes the pressure, because like, because say if you're having because there can be days where you have a 20, 30-day streak where it's just crap. Like you don't want to be in a position where like, oh shit, like I have to release something and you're going to release something that's subpar. So like having a nice runway of 6, buys you a cushion where like you could release, but still be working on your stuff and stacking up the diamonds, so that when the time comes for that, where you've run through like all your 6 releases, now you have a stack of diamonds to choose from. So then it's just like, let's break this one off and then break this one off next. And then what happens is, as your daily work continues and you hit gold, like you keep making diamonds or striking gold or whatever, that you put that to the top of the pile, and it's like, this is the next release. So really you have like a list of stuff that you'd be happy to release, but obviously the top of the list you're happiest to release, right? Like it's going to be the best of the best, and then it's all good. It's just that like the top's always like the best of the best.
So can we expect a Spiderhound EP too, or are you pretty content with singles right now?
Well, so this year I released an EP and a mini EP. So in March I released an EP, and in April I released a mini EP. So like it was a 5-song EP in March, and in April it was a 2-song mini EP. And I was thinking this week, because I kind of struck it this weekend. The songs that I created, they kind of have like a nice continuity to them and a nice vibe. I was thinking maybe break that off as like a mini, like 3-song EP or something like that, for the next release. So like now I'm like getting to the territory where it's like it's not just releasing one song a month. It's like I'm releasing like these mini EPs, or like like I have enough content that I could break off a couple without like doing too much damage. Like I still have a good list.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm really keeping this. You got a consistent theme of this lesson, like build a buffer for yourself, so you don't like run out of your content, and then you can always, as you move on and your bar raises, you can look and reassess that list and be like, all right, well, these 3 are actually all the way ready, and those ones I thought were ready 3 months ago could use some more work.
Totally.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, man. That's exciting.
So if someone's listening to the podcast and they haven't heard any of your music before, what is the one song they should listen to first?
My new release, the right one.
Get it added to a Spotify playlist. Come on, people, get it together.
The right one, released on May 22nd. Like, I love that track. That was a magical moment. Like that started as a 10-minute timer. That was just pure magic. Like it just fell together really quickly, and I love it. I'm in love with that track. It's if you go to Spotify, it's my top song on Spotify. Like it's the right one. I did a video for it, which I'm proud of. Like it's a pretty trippy video that I put together for it. So yeah, check that one out.
Cool.
It's always going to be like it's going to be like
it's the last one.
It's the last one.
It's the last one you put out. Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining us. We seriously appreciate all the knowledge bombs you dropped, and it was really fun.
Your time.
Yeah, hopefully it was helpful. It was always great hanging out with you guys. Thanks for inviting me to be on the Human Music Podcast.
Of course.
Yeah, I think this is a great episode. There's a lot of stuff touched on here, and you really inspired me because like I have my like library of sounds, and every like 3 months or so I'll bring in new stuff, but I think I'm going to go total YOLO chaotic mode and just start grabbing stuff without listening to it and see where that takes me for a bit.
It's cool because Nicola, you start developing the skill of being able to turn shit into gold, right? So, and that's a good skill to have because think about it. Like, if you've developed that, then the sounds are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you grab. Like, it just you grab it because you know how to finagle that thing to sound cool.
100%. Yeah,
total
super
YOLO
inspiring.
chaotic mode.
YOLO chaotic mode, man. It's like living on the edge. It's living on the edge.
I think you just inspired a new challenge for the Human Music Podcast. So we're gonna go on Google. We're gonna find a random word generator. You're gonna get that random word, and you're gonna Command F in Ableton and search that random word. And the first sample that pops up, you got to turn it into a lead or some sort of bass sound that you use in a little drop riff.
I like that.
And if
All right.
no results, you got to do the next one until you get one.
All right. Well, we'll play those for you next week and see what kind of hot garbage we try to
Hot garbage.
Thank you so much, Sean. This was
guys.
great.
It was fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much love.
Peace.
I like it.